morning, good afternoon, good evening. My apologies for being behind time. Earlier on today, I posted a video in which I was trying to answer the question of why are you criticizing Geza and Chamisa if you're serious about democratic change? In other words, Chamisa, Geza are all serious about democratic change, and I shouldn't criticize them. Well, my answer to that one was very simple. Tell me the democratic changes that those two gentlemen have ever brought in all their time on the political platform. And I got a fired back response. And in this case here from one Chief Svosve. I think some of you are familiar with him from Change Radio. And this question is, why are you posting Tsvangirai's picture? I can't believe the response. The issues I raised when I posted that video, one of the big issues I believe affecting the country is the failure of MDC to implement even one token democratic reform in the last 25 years, including the 5 years of 2008 to 2013, when Morgan Tsvangirayi and company had the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have stopped Zanu PF rigging elections. That is surely the substantive issue here. If you're somebody to ignore it completely and start talking of, oh, why did you post Tsvangirai's picture? I think it's totally disrespectful of all the millions of ordinary Zimbabweans who may not understand what was going on, but are nonetheless paying the price for MDC, CCC's failure to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging elections and perpetuating the dictatorship. We cannot keep on pretending that is a small matter. That is the most important issue here. I think it is a pity that people like Chief Svosve, with his platform Change Radio, it's not been performing the task one would expect of somebody in the media, i.e., educating the people. He has been doing the exact opposite, brainwashing the people. Zimbabwe has had the misfortune, the great misfortune, of having its founding fathers, from both sides of the political divide, the ruling parties Zanu PF, MDC, CCC in the opposition. We had no clue about creating a democratic Zimbabwe. And this has been the problem. And this is the reason why we are in this mess. In the video I'm referring to, I went to great lengths to explain that Zanu PF had the opportunity to have a democratic Zimbabwe when the country gained its independence in 1980. That didn't happen because of greed. Mugabe and his friends could not resist the temptation of imposing themselves as the new ruling elite. And that's unfortunately what happened. We had a situation where if Zanu PF had implemented and written and were committed to a democratic process, democratic Zimbabwe, as happened with other nations, notably South Africa, Zimbabwe would be in a different place right now. Unfortunately, that was not to be. Robert Mugabe and his colleagues decided that power was more important to them. And so the first elections, the 1980 elections themselves, instead of committing and upholding the one man, one vote that all the blacks thought they were fighting for, one of the key things that they were fighting for, they did not. Robert Mugabe's campaign message in 1980 was that if Zanu PF does not win the election, the Bush War will continue. Of course, the people voted to end the Bush War. And 3 years later, Zanu Mugabe launched the infamous Kukuraunde, whose primary purpose was to force the only other political party that really constituted a serious challenge to Zanu PF, i.e. PF SAPU, led by the late Dr. Joshua Nkomo, to give up its independence and sign the Unity Accord that paved the way for the creation of the de facto one-party state. The country had the opportunity, a second bite at the cherry, if you want, to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. In 2008 to 2013 with the GNU. And this is what I was referring to when Morgan Tsvangirayi and company failed to implement even one token reform. And yet we have got people like our friend here, Chief Svosve, who have wanted to gloss over their failures, pretend it was nothing. And when we should be focusing on why they failed to implement the reforms and what we can do to correct the situation, all he cares about is, oh, who gave you permission to post Morgan Tsvangirayi's photograph? And yet it is in the public domain. And to me, this is the most trivial issue that you could possibly bring up. But it underlines the problem we have in Zimbabwe, where we have got those in positions of power and authority who have no clue what they're doing. They're just village idiots blundering from pillar to post. And that is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. It is said that when America's founding fathers wrote the Constitution, one of the authors of that Constitution, Benjamin Franklin, was asked by one of the members of the public what kind of institution or government were they proposing. And Benjamin Franklin's answer was a republic, if you can hold on to it. The American Constitution has endured for nearly 300 years. It has worked. The rights and freedoms of the individuals have been upheld to this day. Zimbabwe had no such luck. Our founding fathers in Zanu PF wanted a de facto one-party state from the word go. And when we were given another chance in the GNU of 2008-2013, whose primary purpose was to implement the democratic reforms to end the Zanu PF dictatorship, Morgan Tsvangirayi and company had their own agenda. Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of high office, and they failed to implement even one token reform. And even now, with the benefit of hindsight, some people want that to be swept under the carpet. We can't even talk about it. Anyone who dares to talk about it is considered public enemy number one. Of course, it is disappointing. It is truly tragic. I think in the last video, what I said, and I'll say it here again, that if Zimbabwe was given another opportunity or given a democratic Zimbabwe in a silver platter, let's not ask how that happens. Just say we got it. I think given the mentality of both Zanu PF leaders and their apologists, and Chamisa and his apologists, I would not be surprised at all that the nation would lose that democracy within a few months, if it lasts that long. The ordinary people would be under siege from our political elite to deny them those fundamental rights. Tragic. How did we get into this mess? Unbelievable. I suppose if it was left to Chief Svosve, he'll be asking me, do I have permission to post Benjamin Franklin's photograph? To say nothing of his own photograph. And yet, there are big issues here. Zimbabwe is a failed state because we have failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. We have failed to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections, even when we had the golden opportunity to do so. And instead of focusing on those issues, we are being dragged to talk about, do you have permission to post Morgan Tsvangirai's photograph? Unbelievable.